Hi, welcome to my channel. I'm Sarah Louise and I wanted to talk today about strong connections and why we have these really intense connections to people that we can't seem to turn off. I've actually moved through that stage of the journey now, but I know that part of the journey really well, where you have this super strong connection to somebody, you think that they're your twin flame. And I'm not going to go into the label of twin flames and how they show up, but at the end of the day it's all the same journey, because everybody that we meet and every connection is showing us elements of our unhealed selves and parts of ourselves that we don't want to own up to and integrate, and they're just showing us like where we don't love ourselves basically. So they're all, whatever the strength of the connection, whatever label you give it, any connection that you have with somebody is showing you a part of yourself that is not like in full alignment. So basically you already are complete, like we already are whole. The job isn't to become whole. The job is just to remember that we're already whole and that we're already perfect. And the main thing that we need to do with these really intense connections is just acknowledge that we created them, and that everything that they do that perceivably hurts us or does something that triggers us or upsets us is our creation. So we created that behavior in them because we wanted to love ourselves and we wanted to see that behavior so that we could overcome that trigger and we could move more into the space of understanding that we create our reality and we are the creators. So when somebody that you have a connection to does something and it really upsets you and it drives you crazy, and say they reject you or they don't want to be with you or they like someone else's photo online, your only job is to acknowledge that you created that with your doubts, with your insecurities, with your belief systems and your fears. And once you realize that, then you realize you're the creator of your reality. And this kind of happens, I find, on my journey anyway, in stages where you have continual aha moments of realizing that you're the creator of your reality. Like you realize it and you feel it, then you lose it for a bit, then you feel it. So it's, I think in the Bible they talk about how Jesus had to keep his disciples awake because they kept falling asleep. It was like, obviously the Bible, sorry, I'm so thirsty today, isn't to be taken literally. The Bible has a lot of like really useful metaphors in it actually, if you look a bit deeper. So he was basically trying to stop his disciples from losing themselves in their 3D reality, rather than understanding that it's their insides and their them that is creating from their internal world. And that kind of like keeping them awake was basically what we have to do to ourselves, and we have to keep on waking ourselves up. No, you're creating this, and not going into that emotional reaction, which is really, really hard. You know, still find it hard on certain topics, you know, I'm not gonna lie, but it's the only way through. And what I find is when you're manifesting something or you're intending for something, I find almost every time without fail you get a test first. So it's like something happens, it's not quite what you wanted, or even worse, something shows up that's like the total opposite of what you wanted. And it's almost like a test. Are you going to react? Are you going to emotionally react to the situation? Or are you going to know that it's already done? Are you going to stay in your vibration? Are you going to know that the 3D reality is nothing but a reflection of your internal energy? And anything you don't like that's showing up in it is just your fears and your limited beliefs about yourself. Anybody that treats you in a way that isn't how you wish to be treated is basically just how you treat yourself on an internal level. If someone rejects you, you rejected yourself long before they rejected you. On an energetic level, you walked into that room or you sent that message and you'd already rejected yourself. Your predominant energy was like, oh my God, you know, I'm going to get rejected here. Even if you were thinking that you thought the opposite, your predominant thought was that you'd already rejected yourself. You can't get rejected unless you've already rejected yourself prior on an energetic level. And basically everybody, so all these strong connections that we meet, all these connections, they're all basically versions of us pushed out that have to be healed. And it's like we're like, by healing through them, it's like we're completing within. And the twin flame journey is a difficult one for me, because I absolutely believe in twin flame union. When it comes to the body that it comes in, I think it's quite limited to say. I mean, I definitely had a twin flame experience that woke me up. I was, I'm not going to go into it because everybody thinks at the time, me included, like, no, but this one's different. Mine's definitely a twin because this one's different. And I get that. And there's no way that anybody can talk to you or say any different at that point. And it's everybody's own journey to go through that. And what I found is some people, that initial person that drove them crazy and they just were in and out with, and they did end up with them eventually after like a decade of triggering. And some let them go and met new ones. And I would say more did that. And they didn't sort of end up with somebody that was a secondary connection. They genuinely, the energy shifted and they just felt that energy in somebody else. And, that leads me to believe, I mean, I definitely believe in the union. I definitely believe in the inner union reflected in the outer world. I don't think it really matters, and it's that important who the physical body is. At the end of the day, if that feels like your ultimate union and you're constantly evolving and you're progressing and you're doing the inner work, it's going to be reflected on the outside. So, I'm open-minded down that journey as to whether people are just manifesting their connections versus there really is the one connection. I mean, there's multiple parallel realities. And how do you know that if you shift a reality, you're not going to have, the twin flame is an energy. How do you know your twin flame's not going to be there in a different body? I mean, this is kind of what I experienced, because the energy literally jumped and that first person just completely disappeared and dropped off the face of the earth. Never, ever saw anything, never stopped wanting them. It's like they just didn't exist. And, I think we would be quite limited. No one really has all the answers, because people can say I'm with my twin flame, but I mean, anyone can say anything. And it doesn't really matter if you feel you're with your ultimate person and you're doing the work on yourself and you're getting into your inner union, then, it's going to be expressed on the outside. If it's with the same person that you originally got woken up with, or it's somebody else, it doesn't matter. But I just wanted to share my experience with that. But anyway, all these pushed out versions of you, be it this person that you just trigger in and out with, or all the different people that come in, they're all just reflecting your dominant thoughts back to you. And that's the reason we live in a holographic universe and a 3D experience, is because we basically want to see ourselves because it's easier to grow. Otherwise, if we were just sat on our own, just, we wouldn't really have, we wouldn't have that push to, like romantic relationships and pools and, work and engagement. All relationships with all people are what really trigger us to evolve and to grow. And they are just us mirrored back to ourselves. So we're basically just getting that real opportunity. That's why, on earth, we really want to grow. We really want to evolve. We get the opportunity in every single relating experience that we have to heal ourselves deeper, to acknowledge more about ourselves, and to see more about inner belief system played out. The problem is when we attach to that reality playing out and we don't just use it as a tool. So that reality is something that we use as a tool, and it doesn't matter what goes on, anything can happen, and we're like, no, I'm not buying that. I'm going to shift that inside of me and create something different. As soon as we emotionally react to that 3D reality and we start to kind of build more limiting beliefs around it, then we're just keeping it alive, we're keeping it going. And that's why I'm not a big proponent anymore. And I have done this, you'll see on my channel, I leave all my videos up because I am constantly evolving, I'm constantly questioning things, I'm constantly, you know, trying to find the truth and the way to, you know, heaven on earth. And obviously, you know, the things that I say have changed over the years, and I would question anybody who haven't. And you know, I did used to do a lot of inner child healing, like looking at my wounds, and you know, I think that's something that's really good to do once. I wouldn't say never to do it, because I think it had a time and a place, but I did it for way too long, because what you end up doing is you end up just spinning this baggage around, and you're just always talking about your wounds, and it's like you keep them alive. Yes, talk about them, clear them, process them, do counseling. I think that's really useful. But then, boom, move forwards, affirm, intend, raise your vibration. Like, you don't want to live in your wounds forever, because you see, it's a very victim mindset. Like, oh, the world's against me because of this, or this happened to me in my childhood. No one's discrediting it. We're all allowed and entitled to feel everything that we feel in life. But if we want to move forwards, we really do, I believe, need to kind of stop doing that after a bit and go out there and, you know, acknowledge it, work through it. We've all had painful experiences. Some of us have had, you know, more traumatic experience than others, but at some point we need to like shift the boat and stop going there, leave those waters and charter somewhere new. And the same with observing your reflections, you know, observing somebody and being like, oh, they've got baggage and they can't commit to me. I'm gonna affirm to myself that they're over that and they can commit to me. It's very easy to get lost in the story of our projections, and I've done this timeless times. Oh, it's almost like you make an excuse for it. Like, oh, but they've got all this baggage and they're not over their baggage and they've got all this trauma. And you know, I was like the queen of meeting people that were like crazy about me, but had all this like so much trauma. You wouldn't actually believe that I met 3 really strong connections with exactly the same traumatic childhood. Why did I do that? Because of what it triggered in me. That particular trauma like really triggered my intimacy wounds, my like fear of rejection. But if I go into that story too much, it's like I'm just keeping it all alive. I'm keeping their wounds alive. I'm keeping that version of them alive. I'm keeping my own wounds alive. You know, I just acknowledge it, and then I affirm what I want, and I'm done with it. In the past, I used to literally, you know, I'd talk to my friends. Oh, yeah, he's got this baggage. And then I go to a psychic. Oh, he's got this baggage. And, you know, like, I literally wrote the stories for them, kept them alive and kept them cycling for God knows how long. And that's really what we want to get away from. So yeah, acknowledge what you're being shown in 3D through these projections of these other people. But then decide what you want to affirm, decide you want to shift the boat. And I really think that's one of the most important parts. It's very easy to fall asleep and to get lost. I think I'll probably end up saying this in every video, but the key is just not reacting to the 3D, because you always get a test. Every time you're manifesting and you're on the verge of like a breakthrough, you always get a test. Not always, actually, that's not true. If there's no emotions there and it's just like la-di-da-di-da, you know, I want to sell a plant today for a £5. I'll probably just sell a plant for £5. I'm probably not going to get any tests. But if it's something where I have like a heavy emotional response to, I find that I'll always get a test. Always. Like if it's a specific person, I never quite get the message I want. They just say hi, you know, or you get shown something you really don't want to see, because it's like you really just have to actually show you can respond in a different way and you cannot react. And some of them are really hard because you're like, but they did this, and you know, how could anybody forgive this or get over this? And, you know, and that is when Jesus is saying to his disciples, you have to stay awake, and he just keep knocking them awake, because it just really is really easy just to get caught up in the emotions, get lost in the reaction, and to just fall asleep. So the ultimate thing is when we realize that we are God and that everybody is literally just showing us ourselves, and at that point we are healed, and so all the reflections of ourselves we heal. This is why I believe we want to wake people up. We really just want to wake ourselves up, you know, like we don't. I think the reason that a lot of us, when we wake up, feel the mission to go and wake other people up is just because everybody is us. So we're just seeing all these different reflections of ourselves, and we're like, no, we need to wake up deeper and deeper and deeper. And sometimes through sharing the stuff and doing this work, you actually do wake yourself up deeper as well, because you're always questioning, you're seeing more, you're evolving more, you're exploring more. So, you know, we're just all waking ourselves up through other people or through the projections. So you will attract your perfect, specific person, whatever label we want to give them. When you basically can just look at your reflection, or you can go and sit in the mirror and